Good evening, students. So, in my
evening,
last class, good evening. In my last class, I asked you to go through your book about the topics responsibility and accountability. Saislane Olaman? So, every day you see, we hear the word responsibility. Like, is it? When I ask you, So, the term responsibility, it is a very common word, right? Since your childhood, the teachers always ask you to be responsible, right? So, what is the just basic meaning of responsibility? Ki boli buja? What do you understand? Responsibility. Tamne? Jitu kamor daitto hetu? Yeah. Thike koisa tumi. That means we have to for your duties, right? Okay, responsibility is the obligation to perform the duty. That means when some work is assigned to you, then you have to complete the task to the fullest of your capacity. Tumar jiman khini tumar hamortho ase gutekhini milai pele tumi jiman bhalke kamtu koribo para kamtu teneke koratoke koi responsibility, right? You have to do the task the way you are supposed to do it, right? In a very good way, right? So that is the meaning of your responsibility. And when you assume a responsibility, tar logot aru eta shobdo ami use koru, say accountability. Hunisane? Accountable. Who will be accountable for this? Ami je ko accountability is the answerability to the performance of a task. Tamne when a superior he asks you to do some task, then you have, when you perform, whether you perform or not, you have to be answerable to your superior, right? Bujisa kotha tu. He bostu tuke tumar accountability bula hoy, right? Because when a superior he will delegate some work to his subordinate, then he will assume that this person will behave in the way that he is supposed to do the work, right? So this person or the subordinate, he is accountable or he is answerable for the performance of his task, of the duties. He have to perform his job role in a good way, and his performance will be judged by the superior, right? Keneke kam khini korise bhalke korise ne nai, superior jone their behavior to judge koribo. That is the meaning of your accountability, right? Aru eta term ami commonly huno hetu authority. These terms are interrelated with each other, okay? Authority boli shobda eta ami khubke huno. So what is authority? Power to take decisions. And from what authority comes? Authority keneke ami manu ejonor authority kor pra ahe? Okay, authority flows in a top down approach, but authority kihar pra ahe? Is it from his position? Is it from his status? Is it from his rank? From what? Authority keneke ahe? Authority comes from the position that a person is holding in the organization, right? Kan bibhinno dhoroner manuhor usort bibhinno dhoroner authority ase, and authority is the right to take decision making and ask obedience of his decisions from the subordinates. Their usort right thakibo, their usort mane belegor upor order solabole ki thakibo, right or power thakibo, and he will obviously ask the what? Ask for the obedience of his rules or decisions. Teo jikhini decision lobo, subordinates need to obey or follow them, right? Bujisa? And different people can exert different amount of authority according to his own will. Enuka nohoy je a person can have unlimited authority. Mane as a manager usor authority ase kan he cannot do anything that he likes, right? He have to exert his authority in a limited manner, depending on what? Depending on the rules, depending on the policies, depending on the formal procedures of the organization. Bujisa kotha kini? So let's go into the slides. Responsibility refers to the obligation to do something. It is the duty of the subordinate to perform organizational tasks, functions or activities that are assigned to him, right? Authority and responsibility goes side by side. Tamne, why it is said that authority and responsibility goes side by side? Because when a person has the authority, he will what? He will give commands to the subordinates, and যেতিয়া commands dibo, the subordinates need to perform them, and it becomes his responsibility. And responsibility, it comes from within. I cannot force you to become responsible. It is your responsibility. Boli koy nohoy? So responsibility is an internal thing. It will come from within you. But authority will come from the what? Come from the position that a person holds in the managerial rank. Bujisa kotha to? When authority is delegated, then some responsibility for getting the assigned task is also fixed. And you see, authority, whether you can delegate what to ahise yat. So what is delegation? Aru eta topic ase next ami pohim. Yet koa hoise no je when authority is delegated, then responsibility for getting the assigned task is also fixed. So what is delegation? Ami je koi thaku delegate kora tamne ki buzu ami je we assign the task to some other person so that the task will get completed in a better way because of either specialization of labor. Hoy ne? Delegate kora mane hetue. Delegation is division of the work and asking the subordinates to perform the task by giving him some authority and responsibility. He will never be able to perform the task if you just give him the responsibility to the work. Okal responsibility dile nohobo. Tar logot you have to assign him some power. Hoy ne? Nohole keneke koribo. Right? So these things, they go hand in hand. Okay. One can delegate authority but not responsibility. To me, authority dibo para ejon manhuak, but you cannot give the responsibility. Bujisa e kotha to? Keneke? Yeah. You cannot, we can give the, this one, we can give the authority to other person to do the task, but responsibility will always lie on the, what? On the, to me, if I delegate the work to some person who is not competent enough to do the work, then if he doesn't finish the work on time or how it is supposed to be, then who will be responsible for that? The superior only, right? So responsibility is the obligation to carry out assigned activities to the best of his abilities. This statement is given by George Terry. You have to remember the names. Okay? George Terry says it is the obligation to carry out the assigned activities to the best of his abilities. Monot rakhiba de naam to. Next is what are the techniques of responsibility? So responsibility assign koribole ami ki techniques use koru, right? So there are two ways basically. First is the responsibility charting. Responsibility charting. Hunile ki buzu ami? Ki buzi sir? Responsibility charting. In this method of assigning responsibility, what we do? Ami duta ki koru ami? We take we do a graph. Graph konot edal horizontal axis lo, edal vertical axis lo hoine. In the horizontal axis, we will take the task that are to be performed, and in the horizontal axis, vertical axis at ami task ki kaambur perform koribo hetu lom, and in the horizontal axis we will be taking out the which person will perform that task, kunjan manhue ki koribo hei mote ami charting korim, right? Ami jodi sao in the form of a graph, it will be like this. It will be like this, okay? Enake salu efale tumar task to thakibo, or here there will be the performers. Tamne SB na? So কি কৰিবা তোমালকে এফালে তোমাৰ আমাৰ just a minute, এফালে you take different peoples will be here, এফালে তোমাৰ কি কৰিব, suppose sales manager, তোমাৰ finance manager, কোনবা কোনবি managers বু থাকিব, ইয়াত তোমাৰ different task that they will be performing, আৰু there will be some হৰু তোমাৰ কি কয় abbreviation নিচিনা থাকিব, and we will be mark it here. In that and then at the last we can see, mane last time ami hekhot ami sabo paru, when we fill up the whole of the chart we can see which person will be doing what job, or ki khini responsibility teolukok dia goise, we can see it. It becomes easier, right? Jetia basic task thake tetia this becomes easier. Kuntu ক'ত আছে হেৰাই যায়। And see, in responsibility charting, the individual who will be given the responsibility, he will have to be consulted. He cannot take the decisions alone. He have to consult others while taking decisions, and he must approve the decisions. He is responsible for the activity, and he has to be informed about the decision or the activity, right? Next is the role negotiation. Role negotiation, the term itself, what does it imply? Ki bujhai? Role negotiation, that means the person who will be performing the task will be no ki koisa, in role negotiation ki koru, the person who will be given the responsibility of doing the task, he will be ki hobo, he will have to behave in a responsible way, right? The basic promise of the technique is that nobody gets anything without promising something in exchange. Jijon yat koa hoise je jijon manuk responsibility eta dia hoy, he will not do things without having something in return. Kiba eta dile he kiba eta pai, mane he will do the job in the hope that he will get something in return, right? And the primary objective of this approach is to identify the independent clusters of tasks completed by the organization. The second is to match the personnel needs and work preference of the individuals with the task that must be completed. Tamne? First, you have to identify the amount of work that is to be done. Then, the individuals, his preferences and his goals will be tried to be aligned with that of the organizational task that is to be performed. That is called as role negotiation. Role negotiate mane ki bujhai? Negotiate mane? It is a type of what? Bargaining, right? Negotiate kora mane bargaining. Now, he might not be ready to do the work, right? So, teo koribo ne nai, teo skills khini milibo ne nai, all these things we have to see in this kind of this technique, right? Role negotiation. Hey, role to he manujone play koribo ne nai. He will assume those responsibilities of doing the task or not, right? Next here is just the difference kita ebar পঢ়ি লোৱা what is the মানে just the basic definition to দিয়া আছে the authority is delegated but responsibility is assumed and accountability is imposed বুজিছা impose মানে বেলেগে তোমাৰ ওপৰত impose কৰিছে জাপি দিয়া yes বেলেগে তোমাৰ ওপৰত মানে কি কয় হেৰি কৰি দিছে মানে তোমাৰ ওপৰত দিছে তুমি নিজে হেতু তামনে by out of your own will deliberately you are not taking that role right কোনবা বেলেগে তোমাক দিছে authority is delegated how because authority comes from the position so he position to tumi hold korile he authority thakibo right next responsibility is assumed you have to take the responsibility on your own and accountability is imposed because when you are performing the task then you have to be answerable for the performance of that task right bujisa next is accountability it is the liability created for the use of authority and answerability mazot kele ahi ase ki koile okay it is the liability created for the use of authority it is the answerability for the performance of the assigned duties it is concerned with the fact that each person who is given authority and responsibility must recognize that the executive above him or her will judge the quality of his performance bujisa ami je ko kune risk lobo so kune accountable hobo right if you do not study well if I make you if I teach you and you do not understand then who will be accountable obviously I'll be accountable for that right next is what are the 6 core behaviors that make strong accountability in managers accountable managers book accountable banabo karone ki behavior dorkar hoy so first is your setting clear expectations mane the persons who will be accountable for the performance of the task their job roles or responsibilities should be first properly defined bujisa ne tamne jibur manhuok tumi kam khini diba they should know that what role they have to play in the organization bujisa the subordinates who will be performing different tasks in the organization they should actually know that what role they should be fitting in the job বুজিছা না নিজৰ তেওঁ জানিব লাগিব যে মোৰ এখিনি ডিউটিজ হয় মই এখিনি কৰিব লাগিব then only he can clearly see the objectives of the organization and align it with his own personal objectives so that they work for the growth of the organization right first hetu koribo lagibo next is providing meaningful feedback mane the subordinates will be performing the duty he will be answerable to the superior and the superior who will judge his performance will have to give feedback about his performance tetiya he teo nijoke improve koribo paribo right and he will be more accountable in future if it commits any mistakes right third is the establishing the workplace hierarchy tar mane jitu hierarchy ba jitu formal structure of the organization works right that should be followed that chain of commands which is flowing from the top to bottom the subordinates should follow that orders right buji paisa next is your focusing on team cohesion mane atha logar nisna ke cohesion is the what mane that grip or the what to put on that working in the team spirit behavior that is called as team cohesion right so focusing on team cohesion that means For making people in an organization accountable, everyone in the organization should work in a team, and there should be team cohesion. That means there should be coordination among the different members. In that, if there is team cohesion, then only the people will be accountable, right? Next is your leading by example. Leading by example means when a person works in a team, then everyone should behave in a similar way, right? And you should behave in a way in which you expect others to behave, right? If you want that the organization is prospering, then everyone in the team, they should work in the same direction, right? And the way you want others to treat you, you should also behave in the same way, right? Next is your identifying and fostering growth. So, identifying and fostering growth mane yat ki bujhaise je growth ketia ahibo eta organization. When just the organization to okol grow kori thakile nohobo, it should also bring the personal growth of the individuals. Personal growth mane eta organization at manhue ki bisare je nijoru growth hoy, hekane growth নহলে ki kora, individuals they change the organizations. Why we see that people change their jobs very often? Monetary factor, do you think that only monetary factor it provides motivation to the people? Nohoy, manhue okol se poisar karone sakori eta nokore. Some people they even work with a small salary, but they are satisfied. Why? Because other factors, it gives them motivation or happiness. So, okol tumar financially okol sound hole ekjon person organization etat kaam kore tenekwa nohoy. It should also bring the personal growth. Our personal growth hobo karone that superior, he should look into the skills and what? Into the what kind of ability the subordinates they have. He should look into that and align the different job roles or responsibility in alignment with his skills and abilities. In that way only he will feel satisfied and he will work better to bring personal growth of the person as well as the individual, as well as the organization. Next is accountability versus responsibility. It I already kolu, both goes side by side. And accountability is, it is the expected behavior of a subordinate by the superior. How the superior want his subordinates to behave, right? And responsibility is the obligation to perform the duties or the task. Next is what is authority? So, authority is it is the power to take decisions and use the resources of an organization to the fullest of the capacity, and when a person exercises authority, he will also demand the obedience from the subordinates. Okol authority thakile nohobo, jetia authority thakibo, he will obviously want that his subordinates will follow his commands, right? And it is institutionalized or it is formal. It is a formal thing, right? In management, authority may be defined as the right to guide and direct the actions of others and to secure from them responses which are appropriate for the attainment of the goals of the organization. So tell me one thing, authority kyo dorkar? Why is authority needed in an organization? Kyo dorkar hoy? Kyo dorkar hoy? Authority nathakile ki hobo? Chaos hobo, subordinates will never, what? Never do their work the way they are supposed to do, and their behavior will become unruly. Jodi authority thake, then there will be someone who will be commanding over them. Na command to jodi nathake titia ki hobo? Hiyotor behavior to ki hobo? Manubur timely officer ahibo. Jodi authority nathake, no one is there who will exercise his power, then no one will behave the way they are expected to do in an organization, right? In the words of Simon, Simon ki koise, the authority may be defined as the power to take decisions which guide the action of others. Okay? Next is, usually management has a right to give lawful orders and subordinates have the obligation to obey. This obligation is in effect self-imposed. Bujisa kotha to? Next, what are the characteristics of authority? Authority characteristics ki hoy? It is legitimate. Legitimate mane? Legal, yes, it is legal. Legal mane when someone is not following the authority of someone who is above him, then he has the power to take what? To take what? Certain corrective measures or punishment. He can give some punishments against the subordinates. Himan kini power thake. Okay, and it is legal. No one can say that why you are not pay cut hobo pare, salary kati dibo pare, tar pisot transfer di dibo pare, aru ki hobo pare, overtime kam korabo pare. So various measures are there to correct a person for he may be penalized actually. Okay, next is extents and limits. The authority of a person is not unlimited, it is limited based on the guidelines or the policies of the organization. Third is relationship. Authority will establish a formal superior and subordinate relationship, right? Next is organizational goals. When there is authority in an organization, it helps in the fulfillment of organizational goals. Okay? Understood? Next is the actions and behavior. When there is authority, there will be a hold on the actions and behavior of the people, right? Behavior to control koribo karne we use authority, right? Next is decision making. When there is authority, decision making becomes what? Quick and easy because he has got the power to take decisions and nobody can question them, right? Bujisane? Last is your subjective. Yet ki koise je authority in itself is an objective thing, but its existence is always subjective. A line to khub carefully pohason ki koise subjective boli koise ako yat koise je it is objective. Olop bhabi soason ki koise authority in itself is an objective thing, but its existence is always subjective. Its exercise depends upon the personality factors of the manager who can use it on the subordinates with whom it is to be exercised. First line to pohi soason ki bujisa kwa? Objective or subjective or meaning to jana tumalke? Exam ki kenuka dhana tumalka questions ahibo? Objective. So objective is what? Something which will not vary from person to person. Tumar answer script to jikita questions ahibo, ta question to question or answer to jodi beleg person or viewpoint mote jodi beleg hoy, then it is what? Subjective. But when the answer is, if the answer is what? Same under all conditions, what it will be? It will be objective. But if the answer will change from person to person, then it will be subjective, right? Janeke, the earth revolves around the sun. It is what? Objective. Kityo to change now, it is a universal fact. It is objective hoy. But something like, I drink 5 glasses of water in a day. You may drink only 3 glasses of water in a day. That is subjective. That will depend on the personal choices of the person, right? Hoy ne? To buji sa eto subjective objective kotha to. So, yat ki koise so? Authority in itself is a objective thing, but its existence is always subjective. Tamne so authority in itself is an objective thing. Tamne tumi so authority ahar loge loge tumar ki hoy? The authority thokar loge loge the superior he gets the power to what? Exercise control over others. He gets the ability to take decisions on his own. This is objective, right? Authority পোৱাৰ লগে লগে কি হ'ব? He becomes powerful in certain cases. Unlimited power নহয়, he will get certain amount of power, right? To take certain decisions on his own. So it becomes an objective thing. But its existence is always subjective. But kiman amount of power he will use? How much amount he will use? Amount of his power he will use, that is subjective. It will depend on the managerial capacity of the person, right? Bujisa etia? Bujisa? Next is delegation of authority. So what does delegation of authority means? Delegation of authority means when you ask when a person or a superior asks the subordinates to do the work by giving him some amount of power or discretion to do the work at his own will. Some amount of authority you are giving to the subordinates, right? That is called delegation of authority. The delegation of authority refers to the division of labor and decision-making responsibility to an individual that reports to a leader or a manager. Delegation of authority can be defined as subdivision and sub-allocation of powers to the subordinates in order to achieve effective results. Our F.G. Moore, the person F.G. Moore, he has said that delegation means assigning work to others and giving them authority to do the work. Bujisa? Kune ki koise definition bor, you need to remember the names of the person, right? Next one, delegation or characteristics ki hoy. What are the features of delegation? So ki hobo pare? Just think and tell me. এইমাত্ৰ কৈছোৱে যিখিনি delegation is formal. Delegation of power of the superior is not unlimited. Then delegation when you delegate the work, the decision making of a person, it becomes what? It becomes easy. Why? Because superior burden to komi jai aru you are now what? Tumalke ki korisa je subordinate janok jetia tumi delegate korisa, you are also giving him some authority to take decisions on his own. Hekarne decision making becomes fast. Nohole sob kothar karne ki hobo? Bossor usorle horu kothar karne you have to run to your boss or the superior, right? And he might also sometimes get what? Frustrated, right? Aru ki hobo pare? Delegation of authority is generally in case of some routine task or common task. Tamne tumar jikhini kaam khini jikhini routine work jikhini sobe koribo paribo easy khohos kaam hekhini he tumi delegate kora hoy depending on the ability and the skills of the subordinates. And delegation may be specific, it may be general, it may be formal or informal, either in written or in oral. Orally to me delegate koribo para. In written way also you can delegate. It can be in different forms, right? And delegation does not mean end of responsibility. Moi kaba kaam eta delegate kori dilu bole mur responsibility hek hoy gol. That is not the case, right? Next is what is the importance of delegation? What is the importance of delegation? Just go through the slides. Delegate korile ki hobo? Delegate korile one important thing is that when a person delegates the work to the subordinates feel that ভাল পায় ন যে মোকো অলপ কাম দিছে ময়ো এজ এন ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট মেম্বাৰ he will have that sense of belongingness to the organization, right? And he will feel that his viewpoints are also taken into consideration, and it will improve his what? It will improve his morale of the organization. It will improve his motivation to do the work, right? And it also helps the superior in having specialized knowledge of the subordinates, because subordinates are generally, they are specialized in certain areas. Aru jetia manager jane delegate kore kam to, he will also get to know about the specialization of certain sectors, right? Baki points are this, the other points they are repetitive, so I am skipping this. Next, what are the steps in the process of delegation? So the first step is determination of the results expected. Kam eta diar agote result to ki hobo hetu determine korar pisot he you have to what? You have to delegate the work. First the results to keneko hobo, that you have to determine. If I give this amount of work to this person, whether he will be able to complete the work or not, that you have to think ahead of assigning the duties, right? Second is the assignment of duties. Look into the board. Third is the granting of authority. First, tumi result to bhabi lobo lagibo. Next, after determining the results, next you have to assign the duties kune kiki koribo. Then you have to give him the authority to perform the task. And then when the subordinate, he will perform his duty, then he will be answerable to his superior, and that is called as what? Accountable. He will be accountable to his superior, right? Steps gita prothom monot thakibo noy, right? 4 steps. Which is the first step in delegation? Determination of the results, then assignment of duties, then authority grant koribo lebo, you have to give him the authority, and last is the accountability, right? Next, what are the difficulties in delegation? Manhe kyo the superior, why he doesn't want to delegate? Kele delegate koribo ni bisare? Kele koribo ni bisare? Eta to power to jabo bili, eta to jodi nije inefficient hoy, pole to khuli jabo no, hoy na? If the person does some if he doesn't maintain the records or does anything which is fishy, then if he delegate the work to others will come to know about the loopholes. Problem area aire tete last pabo boli delegate koribo nibisar, aru he might not have trust in his subordinates, and bhabibo pare je kam to nije korar nisna. So everyone have this one tendency in their mind that I do the thing in the best way. So hetu bhab thakile he will never delegate to the subordinates, right? Next, autocrat mane gom paisa na? Who is an autocratic person? Hitler. Yes, the best example. Autocratic person will be what? Behaving in a all powerful, moye sob jano, moye sob paro, that way, right? Next, trust, incompetent, risk. Our last point to jitu dia ase risk. Tamne ki koise je few managers are inclined to accept the risk of wrong decisions. Tumalke jana nohoy few, a few, tamne little, a little, the little enake je thake jana nohoy. Few mane ki? Few managers mane kom nohoy. A few mane kom. Few mane no manager. Few kunba je ko little rice mane okoman chaul nohoy. Little rice mane no rice. A little rice is okoman chaul. Okay, so yet ki hoise few managers are inclined to accept the risk of wrong decisions. Tamne bele subordinates ok jodi ami kam to delegate koru titia hole teuluke bhul decision lobo boli ketiaba superior bule bure dibole tan pai, because jodi bhul eta hoy, who will be accountable? Superior will be accountable, because he is delegating, right? So teo mane hekhini risk lobo nibisare je tak di kaam tu beya hoatke tatke moi nije korim, right? So that is the point. Next is your, what is the difficulties of delegation on the part of the delegator? Lacks confidence. Confidence nathake subordinates or upor. Suitable directions. A manager is not likely to delegate authority when he cannot issue suitable directions to guide the activities of subordinates. Tamane, if he is not able to give directions, tamane jodi hi manukhini kuntu directionot kaam koribo lage hekhini jodi guide korar capacity to nathake, he will never delegate, because just giving the task to someone is not enough. You have to direct him or guide him in what way he has to get the things done, right? Hetu to manager kaam hoy ne, belegok guide kora, belegok lead kora, you have to direct him, right? And if he cannot give directions, then why will he delegate, right? Kan nijo to janibo lagibo na bostu to. Next is adequate controls. Adequate controls mane, if a superior, if he finds that he does not have the proper control over the things, then he will not delegate to others. Bujisa? You also, when some task is assigned to the subordinates, he must also have that controlling power. He controlling power to jodi nathake, then he will not delegate the work, right? A manager will hesitate to delegate authority if he has no means to ensure that the authority is being properly used by the subordinates, right? Subordinates kyo delegated work to lobo nibisare? Why does the subordinate doesn't want to assume the task through delegation? Subordinates kyo koribo nibisaribo pare? Responsibility lobo nibisaribo pare, nije incompetent hobo pare, aru inefficient hobo pare, aru risk lobo nibisare. Agor points kini ulta points kini, right? Aru anything new? Extra responsibility lobo nibisaribo pare, aru kiba bhul hobo boli agotiyake bhoy khabo pare. So these things will come on the part of the subordinate. So delegation korar samayot effective delegation hobole ki amar hobo lagibo. First is the functional definition. Functional definition. Before delegating authority, a manager should define clearly the functions, that is objectives of each job, the activities related and its relationship with other jobs to his subordinates. Delegation by results expected, parity of authority and responsibility, absoluteness of responsibility. First is your functional definition. Tarmane authority to delegate korute, we have to see that the functions are being performed or not, right? Bujisa kotha to? Ki? In an organization, every person has to perform different functions, right? Depending on his what? Department, right? So tomar jetia delegate kora hoy tetia he functions kini perform hoise na etu sabo lagibo. Next is delegation by results expected. Authority should be delegated only after the results to be achieved by the subordinates are decided. Agot jitu koisilu, parity of authority and responsibility mane there should be a balance between authority and responsibility. Okay? Authority or responsibility, there should be an equal balance. Okay? Next is your absoluteness of responsibility. Absoluteness of responsibility mane responsibility cannot be delegated. Authority can be delegated, but responsibility you cannot delegate the responsibility. Or better word is it cannot be re-delegated actually. Karan authority tumi jetia delegate kora, authority diar loge loge that person has to become what responsible actually a word to delegated nohoy redelegated hobo lagisle yet mane kotha to eketai hoy kintu authority logot responsibility thakiboi kintu he responsibility to ago he belekok mane dibo nware bujisa right no manager can avoid his responsibility by delegating his authority to subordinates right ekhine just the points mo koi disu effective delegation or karone unity of command thakibo laibo unity of command means what bahut bar kolo এজন বস থাকিব ওকে এজন বসৰ কমান্ড যে ফলো কৰিব লাগিব well defined limit of authority মানে power এটা লিমিট থাকিব right authority level principle managers at each level should make all decisions within their jurisdiction and should avoid the temptation to refer to their superiors decisions which they are authorized to take themselves tar mane tumar মানে জিমান খিনি হিয়তৰ তোমাৰ হিয়তক অথৰিটি দিয়া হয় হে ক্যাপাসিটি মতে দে শুড বি টেকিং দ্য ডিসিশনস দ্য সাবঅৰ্ডিনেটছক যেতে অথৰিটি দিয়া হয় they are expected to take certain decisions on their own which they cannot again give to others right hetue koise je authority level principle superior authority ase teo he authority to subordinates ok delegate korise but he again cannot what give that authority to someone else right next is centralization and decentralization centralization is the what centralization is the concentration of power in the hands of the top level executives of the company and the opposite of that is your decentralization so decentralization of authority is what it is the delineation of power into the hands of the what into the hands of different executives at different levels and centralization kyo kora hoy ar decentralization kyo kora hoy or why is it required centralization kyo lage centralization is required in an organization to have a grip on the what on all the people or the departments of the organization or decentralization kyo lage because decentralization will help in it will have in fast decision it is not always easy or possible to for the same managers or the executives to look into everything right sob bostu sabole ezone and in that case you will not have specialization right june jitu kamot bhal hetut ami divide kori dibo lage hoy na so we will just look into the definitions and rest we will continue in our next class so centralization and decentralization are opposite terms they refer to the location of decision making authority in an organization centralization implies the concentration of authority at the top level of the organization while decentralization means dispersal of authority throughout the organization they are relative terms because organizational structure consists of both these features bujisa ekhin loge there cannot be complete centralization or decentralization in practice absolute centralization means each and every decision is to be taken by top management which is not practical similarly absolute decentralization implies no control over the activities of subordinates which cannot be possible from the next slide I'll be continuing in my next class okay